The Kethra had never known war. For 10,000 years, their civilization had grown in peace on the blue-green world they called Velner Prime. They built tall cities of crystal and light. They created art and music that was famous across the galaxy. They believed that kindness and wisdom were the greatest strengths any species could have. They were wrong, though. Sketh Dominion arrived on a cold morning when 3 of Velner Prime's 4 moons were visible in the sky. High Counselor Tevena was in her garden when the first reports came through. She dropped her teacup and watched it shatter on the stone floor, dark liquid spreading like blood. Within an hour, the peaceful world she had known her entire life was gone forever. The Sketh were insectoid creatures. They stood on 6 legs and had hard shells that covered their bodies like armor. Their eyes were black and empty, showing no emotion at all. They did not come to conquer. They did not come to negotiate. They came to harvest. The Kethra had seen what the Dominion did to other worlds. They stripped everything: trees, water, minerals, and people. Nothing was left behind except bare rock and ash. The Sketh used the organic material to feed their hive ships. They used the minerals to build more weapons. They were a plague that moved from system to system, leaving only death behind them. Tevena had sent emergency messages to the Galactic Council the moment the Dominion fleet appeared. 47 ships surrounded her world, each one bristling with weapons. The Kethra had a small defense force of only 12 vessels. They fought bravely. They lasted less than an hour. Now, 3 weeks later, Tevena stood in an underground bunker beneath her capital city. The beautiful crystal towers above were burning. The gardens she had loved were craters. The Sketh bombardment continued day and night, softening the planet's defenses before the final invasion. Her aide, a young male named Sorvin, approached her with a datapad. His 4 eyes were dark with exhaustion. Neither of them had slept more than a few hours in days. "The shield generators are failing," he said quietly. "Our engineers say we have maybe 6 hours before they collapse completely." Tevena closed her eyes. 6 hours. 6 hours before the Sketh landing craft would descend. 6 hours before her people would be harvested like grain. "Any response from the council?" she asked. Sarvin shook his head. "Nothing. Our communication relays were destroyed in the first day. We managed to send 1 distress call through an old emergency system, but we do not even know if anyone received it. And even if they did," Tevena said bitterly, "the council would debate for months before sending help. That is their way. Talk and wait while others die." She walked to the main display screen. It showed her world from above, surrounded by enemy ships. Fires burned across 3 continents. Millions of her people had already died. Millions more huddled in shelters like this one, waiting for an end they knew was coming. Tevena thought about her daughter, who had been visiting a research station on the 3rd moon when the attack began. The Sketh had harvested that moon first. There had been no survivors. She tried not to think about it, but the pain was always there, a constant weight in her chest. "We should tell the people," Sorvin said softly. "They deserve to know how much time they have left. They should be able to say goodbye to their loved ones." Tevena nodded slowly. He was right. False hope was a cruel thing. Better to face the end with dignity than to die still waiting for a rescue that would never come. She opened her mouth to give the order, but a sudden alarm cut her off. Red lights flashed throughout the bunker. Technicians rushed to their stations, their voices rising in confusion and fear. "What is happening?" Tevena demanded. As the shield failed early, a young female technician named Relva was staring at her screen with wide eyes. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely operate her controls. "No, High Counselor. It is not the shield. It is something else. Something in the outer system." Tevna moved quickly to the sensor station. She had been a scientist before she entered politics. She could read the data as well as any technician. What she saw made no sense. Space was tearing open. There was no other way to describe it. A hole was appearing in the fabric of reality itself, roughly 1,000,000 kilometers from Velner Prime. Energy readings were off the scale. The Sketh ships were already reacting, several of them breaking from their positions to investigate. "Is it another Dominion fleet?" Sorvin asked. "Reinforcements?" "The energy signature is different," Relva replied. "I have never seen anything like this. It does not match any known technology in our database." Tevna watched as the hole grew larger. It was like a wound in space, glowing with strange blue light. And then, emerging from the wound like a creature being born, came a ship. It was angular and aggressive, built for war in a way that was obvious even from this distance. Its hull was dark gray, almost black, with white symbols painted on its side. The Kethra translation systems worked quickly, converting the alien text into something they could understand. USS Valor, Terran Federation Navy. Terran Federation? Servant said. I have never heard of them. Neither had Tevna. In all her years studying galactic politics, in all the records of the Galactic Council going back thousands of years, she had never encountered any species calling themselves Terrans, but whoever they were, they had arrived at the worst possible moment. One ship against 47. The Sketh would destroy them in minutes. Tevna felt a strange sadness. These unknown strangers had jumped into the middle of a massacre. Perhaps they had received the distress call and come to help. If so, their kindness would be rewarded with death. Track them, she ordered. Record everything. If by some miracle any of us survive this, the galaxy should know that someone tried to help us. The unknown vessel was moving now, not away from the Sketh ships, but toward them. Whoever commanded that vessel was either very brave or very foolish, probably both. The Sketh commander had dispatched 12 ships to intercept the newcomer. Tevna watched them close the distance, their weapons charging with deadly light. She wanted to look away, to spare herself the sight of another pointless death, but something kept her eyes on the screen. Something told her that this was important. Something told her that everything was about to change. The unknown ship reached weapons range. The Sketh opened fire. And then, to the amazement of everyone watching, the Terran vessel fired back. The first Sketh ship exploded. Then the second. Then the third. In the bunker, the Kethra watched in stunned silence. No one moved. No one spoke. They simply stared at the impossible thing happening on their screens. For the first time in 3 weeks, High Counselor Tevna allowed herself to feel something she had thought was dead forever. Hope. Commander Daniel Hayes had been in the Terran Federation Navy for 22 years. He had trained for combat his entire career. He had run thousands of simulations. He had studied the tactics of every great naval battle in human history. But until this moment, he had never fired a weapon in anger. The Valor was a patrol cruiser, designed for long-range missions and light combat. She had a crew of 342 men and women, all of them volunteers, all of them among the best the Federation had to offer. They had been on a routine survey mission when the distress signal came through. The message was weak and fragmented. The language was unknown, but the meaning was clear enough. Someone was dying and asking for help. Hayes had made the decision to investigate without hesitation. It was what the Navy trained them to do. It was what being human meant. Now, standing on the bridge of his ship, watching 12 hostile vessels approaching, Hayes felt calm. Not because he was not afraid. He was terrified. But fear was just another emotion to be managed. What mattered was the mission. Tactical analysis. He asked. Lieutenant Laura Bennett was the Valor sensor officer. She was young, only 28, but brilliant at her job. Her fingers moved across her console like a pianist playing a complex piece. Hostile vessels are insectoid in design, she reported. Heavy forward weapons, minimal shielding. Their armor appears to be some kind of organic compound. Our railguns should penetrate easily. Weaknesses? They rely on numbers and aggression. Their formation is tight, which suggests they are not used to facing enemies who fight back. Also, their engines are exposed. A good hit there would cripple them. Hayes nodded. That was something he could work with. Lieutenant Commander Kevin Ross manned the weapons station. He was a big man with a loud voice and a reputation for being absolutely steady under pressure. Right now, his hands rested on his controls with the easy confidence of a master craftsman. "Weapons charged and ready, Commander," Ross said. "Just give the word." "Communications?" Hayes turned to Eric Torres, his communications officer. "I tried hailing them on all frequencies, sir." No response. They acknowledged our transmission, but did not answer. Their weapons are fully charged, so they are not interested in talking. "No, sir." "I do not believe they are." Hayes looked at the main view screen. The planet below was burning. He could see the scars of orbital bombardment, the fires spreading across continents, the remains of cities that had been beautiful only weeks ago. Whatever lived down there was dying, and these approaching ships were the killers. He thought about the distress call. Someone had sent it into the void, probably expecting nothing. Someone had hoped that kindness still existed in the universe. Someone had been desperate enough to call out to strangers. Hayes was going to answer that call. "All hands, battle stations," he announced. The words traveled through the ship's intercom, reaching every section, every crew member. "This is Commander Hayes. We have civilians under attack by a hostile force. Our mission is simple. We are going to stop them." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Each person knew their role. Each person trusted the others completely. This was what years of training produced. Not just skilled individuals, but a team that functioned as one. Dr. Megan Pierce had come to the bridge from the medical bay. As chief medical officer, her place during combat was usually in surgery, preparing for casualties. But she wanted to see this moment. She wanted to witness what her people were about to do. "You know," she said quietly to Hayes, "we have never actually fought a real battle before. The whole Federation. 60 years of space travel, and this is our first war." Hayes allowed himself a small smile. "Then let us make a good first impression." The scaff ships were in range now. Their plasma weapons were glowing with building energy. They expected an easy kill. One ship against 12. What could possibly go wrong? "Ross," Hayes said calmly. "Fire." The Valor's railgun batteries activated. Electromagnetic coils accelerated tungsten projectiles to 30% of the speed of light. The first salvo crossed the distance to the lead enemy ship in less than a second. The Sketh vessel never had a chance. 3 rounds punched through its forward section, tearing through armor and flesh and machinery. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull. It broke apart, spilling debris and bodies into the vacuum. On the bridge, Ross was already tracking his next targets. Kill confirmed. Engaging targets 2 and 3. The remaining Sketh ships scattered, their formation breaking as they tried to avoid the same fate as their leader. They were fast and agile, twisting through space with the desperate energy of predators, suddenly realizing they were prey. But the Valor was faster. Navigator. Amy Chung pushed the ship through maneuvers that would have torn apart lesser vessels. The Valor rolled and pitched, presenting fresh weapons batteries to the enemy, never staying still long enough to become an easy target. Shield status? Hayes asked. Chief Engineer Nathan Brooks answered from his station. "Holding strong, sir. Their plasma weapons are hitting us, but they are not designed to fight through modern shielding. We can take this all day, then let us end it quickly. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. It was not a fair fight. The Sketh were predators who had spent centuries hunting weaker prey. They had forgotten what it meant to face an enemy who could fight back. They had never encountered a species like humanity. When the 12th ship exploded, the bridge crew allowed themselves a moment of celebration. They had won their first battle. They had proven that human weapons and human training worked. They were still alive. Then Torres spoke up. "Commander, the main fleet is repositioning. All remaining hostile vessels are moving toward us." Hayes looked at the tactical display. 35 ships were now converging on their position. The Valor was good, but she could not defeat an entire fleet alone. "How long until they reach us?" 23 minutes, sir." Hayes considered his options. He could run. The Valor's jump drive could have them out of the system in seconds. No one would blame him for retreating against such odds. But running would mean abandoning whoever was still alive on that planet. It would mean leaving them to die. That was not something Daniel Hayes could do. "Get me a channel to the planet's surface," he ordered. "If anyone down there can hear us, they need to know that help is coming." Torres worked his station. "Channel open, sir. Broadcasting on all frequencies." Hayes stood straight, composing himself. Somewhere down there, people were waiting to die. He was going to give them a reason to hold on. "This is Commander Daniel Hayes of the Terran Federation vessel Valor," he said. "We received your distress call. We are engaging the hostile fleet in your defense. We are not leaving. Help is on the way. Please hold on." He did not mention that he had already called for backup the moment they entered the system. He did not mention that the Third Fleet was probably already preparing to jump. He just wanted them to know they were not alone anymore. The response came seconds later. A female voice, tired but filled with emotion. "Commander Hayes, this is High Counselor Tevena of the Kethra people. We hear you. We see what you have done. But there are too many of them. You cannot fight their entire fleet alone. You should save yourselves." Hayes actually laughed. He could not help it. "High Counselor," he replied, "I appreciate the concern. But I never said I was alone." And then, right on cue, space began to tear open again. Dozens of rifts appeared. And from each one, a human warship emerged. The Third Fleet had arrived. In the underground bunker beneath the ruined capital of Velner Prime, High Counselor Tevena wept. She had watched the entire battle on her damaged sensor screens. She had seen the human fleet emerge from their strange portals. She had watched them tear through the Sketh Dominion like fire through dry grass. She had heard the enemy surrender. It was over. After 3 weeks of terror and death, it was finally over. Around her, the Kethra were celebrating. Technicians were hugging each other. Soldiers who had expected to die were laughing and crying at the same time. Even Sarvin, a serious young aide, had tears streaming down his face. "We are saved," he kept saying. "We are saved." Tevena wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself. She was the High Counselor. Her people needed her to be strong. But she had spent so long preparing for death that she had forgotten what hope felt like. The emotion was overwhelming. A communication request came through. It was from the human fleet. Tevena accepted it immediately. The face that appeared on her screen belonged to an older human female. Gray hair, lined face, eyes that had seen much and forgotten nothing. This was the leader of the fleet that had saved her world. "High Counselor Tevena," the human said. "I am Admiral Patricia Dunn. The enemy fleet has surrendered. Your planet is safe." Tevena had to take a moment before she could speak. "Admiral Dunn, I do not have words to thank you. We sent a message into the void expecting nothing. We had lost all hope. And then you came. We received your distress call," Dunn replied simply. We came as fast as we could. I only wish we had arrived sooner. Tevena thought about the millions who had died in the past 3 weeks. The cities destroyed. The families torn apart. Her own daughter, lost on the third moon. So much pain. So much loss. But it could have been worse. Without the humans, everyone would have died. Our entire species would have been harvested. You saved us, Tevena said. That is enough. That is more than anyone else in this galaxy has ever done for us. Admiral Dunn nodded. We are sending medical teams and supplies to the surface. Our engineers can help rebuild your infrastructure. Whatever you need, we will provide. Why? The question escaped Tevena before she could stop it. Admiral, we have nothing to offer you. We are a small species on a single world. We have no military value, no strategic importance. Why would you risk your ships and your people for strangers? Dunn was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft but firm. Counselor, I have commanded ships for 40 years. I have trained thousands of officers, and I have always taught them one thing above all else. The strong have a duty to protect the weak. Not because there is profit in it, not because it is convenient, but because it is right. Tevena absorbed those words. In all her dealings with the Galactic Council, she had never heard any species express such an idea. The Council operated on trade and mutual benefit. They helped those who could help them in return. They had ignored the Kethra because the Kethra had nothing to offer. These humans were different. I would like to meet you in person, Tevena said. To thank you properly. I would be honored, Dunn replied. A shuttle will be sent to bring you to the Independence. Commander Hayes will escort you. He was the one who answered your call first. Tevena remembered the voice she had heard during the battle. The calm, confident voice that had told her help was coming. She very much wanted to meet the person behind that voice. The shuttle ride to the human flagship was the strangest journey of Tevena's life. She had never been aboard an alien vessel before. Everything was different. The air smelled different. The lights were a different color. The sounds were unfamiliar. Commander Hayes met her at the shuttle bay. He was younger than she expected, with tired eyes and a genuine smile. He extended his hand, and Tevena learned that this was a human gesture of greeting. Hi, Counselor, he said. Welcome aboard the Independence. It is an honor to meet you, Commander Hayes. Tevena clasped his hand carefully, mindful of her longer fingers. You charged into battle against 12 ships to save people you had never met. The honor is mine. Hayes seemed almost embarrassed by the praise. I was just doing my job, High Counselor. Any captain in the fleet would have done the same, would they? Yes. There was no hesitation in his voice. Every single one of them. They walked through the corridors of the Independence. Tevena saw human crew members everywhere, working at their stations, rushing to complete tasks. Many of them paused to look at her with curiosity. She was probably the first Kethra they had ever seen, but there was no hostility in their eyes. Only interest. Only friendliness. Admiral Dunn was waiting in a large conference room. She rose when Tevena entered and offered the same hand gesture. Hi, Counselor. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. Tevena took a seat. The chairs were designed for humans and slightly uncomfortable for her body, but she did not complain. She was too grateful to complain about anything. Admiral, I must ask again, she said. Why did you come? The Galactic Council has rules about interference in conflicts. Every species looks out for their own interests first. But you came to save strangers with no thought of reward. I do not understand. Dunn exchanged a glance with Hayes before answering. High Counselor, where we come from, there is a long history of suffering. Our species has done terrible things to each other. Wars, oppression, cruelty. We know what evil looks like because we have been guilty of it ourselves. Tevena was surprised by this honesty. Most species tried to hide their darker history. But we also learned, Dunn continued, we learned that standing by while innocents suffer makes you complicit in their suffering. We learned that power without responsibility is corruption. We learned that the measure of a civilization is not how it treats its strongest members, but how it protects its weakest. These are not just words to you, Tevena said slowly. You actually believe them. We do, Hayes said. Every officer in this fleet was taught these principles. Every civilian back home believes in them. It is who we are. Tevena sat in silence for a long moment. Her entire understanding of the galaxy was shifting. She had always believed that the universe was cold and indifferent. That species survived by being stronger or more cunning than their neighbors. That kindness was a weakness to be exploited. These humans had proven her wrong. The Galactic Council needs to know about you, she said finally. They need to know that a species like yours exists. We were planning to introduce ourselves eventually, Dunn said. We have been in space for 60 years. We wanted to be prepared before we announced our presence to the galaxy at large. I will speak for you, Tevena said. I will tell them what you did here. I will tell them about humans. Dunn smiled warmly. We would appreciate that, High Counselor. And I will tell them something else. Tevena stood up, her 4 eyes meeting Dunn's too. I will tell them that the galaxy has changed. That there is now a species that believes the strong should protect the weak. That believes in kindness and duty and sacrifice. She paused. I will tell them that no one is alone anymore. The Sketh Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their hive ships had swept across entire sectors, leaving nothing but emptiness behind. They had fought against the Galactic Council's peacekeeping forces and won. They had destroyed civilizations that had existed for millions of years. They feared nothing. Until now. The Dominion fleet commander was a massive creature named Krikstal. He stood in the command chamber of his flagship, surrounded by his lesser officers, watching the tactical display with growing confusion. The strange vessel they had sent 12 ships to destroy had killed all 12 instead. That was annoying, but not alarming. Accidents happened, but now more ships were appearing. Many more ships. They poured out of holes in space, each one painted in the same dark colors, each one bristling with weapons. Krikstal counted them quickly. 12 small fast vessels, 8 medium vessels, 4 large vessels, and 1 massive vessel at the center of the formation. 25 ships in total. Against his 35. Krikstal clicked his mandibles in what passed for a Sketh laugh. The numbers still favored him. These strangers were brave, but bravery alone did not win battles. He had crushed brave enemies before. All ships, he ordered through the hive link that connected his fleet. Ignore the planet. Focus on the enemy fleet. Destroy them all. The Dominion fleet turned as one, abandoning their bombardment positions and moving to engage the newcomers. Krikstal felt confident. He had faced superior numbers before and won through superior aggression. The Sketh way was simple. Attack without mercy. Attack without pause. Attack until nothing remained. He was about to learn that humans had a very different way of war. On the bridge of the dreadnought Independence, Admiral Patricia Dunn watched the enemy fleet approach. She was 63 years old, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had commanded ships for 40 years. She had trained an entire generation of officers. She had written the tactical doctrines that the Terran Federation Navy used. This was the moment she had prepared for her entire life. All ships, this is Admiral Dunn, she announced over the fleet channel. Standard formation delta. Destroyers forward, cruisers on the flanks, frigates provide cover fire. Independence will anchor the center. Remember your training. Protect each other. and let us show these creatures what happens when they attack the innocent. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination. Each captain knew their role. Each crew had drilled these maneuvers thousands of times. They spread out into a defensive formation that presented minimal targets while maximizing their own firepower. Commander Hayes brought the Valor into position on the left flank, joining the other patrol cruisers. His crew was exhausted from their earlier battle, but no one complained. There was too much work to do. Enemy fleet entering weapons range in 2 minutes, Bennett reported. All batteries charged and ready, Ross added. Hayes looked at his crew. These men and women had signed up to explore space, to seek out new worlds and new civilizations. Instead, they had found a war. But not one of them showed any doubt. They were ready to fight. Remember, Hayes said quietly, there are people on that planet counting on us. Whatever happens, we do not let them down. The Sketh attacked first. They always attacked first. Their plasma weapons lit up the void, sending streams of superheated energy toward the human ships. The attacks were fierce but uncoordinated. Each Sketh captain fighting independently, trying to be the one who claimed the first kill. The human shields held easily. Then the humans fired back. The Independents carried the largest weapons in the fleet. Her main railgun was capable of accelerating a 2-ton projectile to 60% of light speed. When it fired, the shot crossed the distance to the nearest Sketh battleship in less than a second. The battleship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next, there was only an expanding cloud of debris and frozen bodies. The destroyers followed up, their rapid-fire railguns targeting the smaller Sketh vessels. The frigates launched missile salvos that tracked their targets with ruthless precision. The cruisers used their medium batteries to pick off any ship that tried to flank the formation dot in less than 3 minutes. The Sketh had lost 8 ships. They had not destroyed a single human vessel. Crickstal watched in disbelief. His fleet was being torn apart. The enemy ships moved in perfect formation, supporting each other, covering each other's weaknesses. When one ship's shields weakened under fire, another moved to protect it while it recharged. When a Sketh vessel tried to concentrate fire on a single target, it was immediately attacked from multiple directions. These creatures fought as one. Not like the Sketh hive mind, which was based on obedience and fear. This was something different. This was trust. This was teamwork. Crickstal had never seen anything like it. All ships retreat, he ordered. Fall back to defensive positions around the planet. It was too late. The human fleet was already pressing their advantage. Admiral Dunn had given the order to advance, and her ship surged forward like a wave. The Sketh tried to disengage, but human vessels were faster and more maneuverable. On the Valor, Hayes was directing his crew through the most intense combat of their lives. A Sketh destroyer had gotten close enough to score several hits on their shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Shields at 60%, Rooks reported. We can take a few more hits, but we should probably kill that thing soon. Working on it, Ross muttered, his hands flying across his controls. The Valor's railgun swiveled and fired. The Sketh destroyer took 2 rounds to its engine section and went dark, spinning away helplessly. Good shooting, Hayes said. I have been practicing. The battle raged on. The Sketh were fighters, whatever else could be said about them. They did not surrender. They did not flee once the retreat order was given. They fought until their ships were destroyed, until the last of them was dead. But they were losing, badly. Admiral Dunn watched the tactical display as another Sketh vessel broke apart. Her fleet had taken damage. Several ships had wounded crew members, but not a single human vessel had been destroyed. Not one. Admiral, her communications officer said, we are receiving a transmission from the enemy flagship. They want to negotiate. Dunn considered it, The Sketh had killed millions on the planet below. They had shown no mercy. They had offered no terms. They were predators who saw other species as nothing more than food. But Patricia Dunn was not a predator. She was a naval officer. And naval officers followed rules. "Open a channel," she said. The face that appeared on her screen was hideous by human standards. Black eyes, clicking mandibles, glistening chitin. But Dunn showed no reaction. She had seen worse in her time. "Sketh Commander," she said calmly. "I am Admiral Patricia Dunn of the Terran Federation Navy. You are defeated. Your fleet is destroyed. You will surrender immediately, or you will be killed. Those are your only options." Crickstow stared at her. No one had ever spoken to him like that. No one had ever defeated him so completely. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Where did you come from? We have conquered hundreds of worlds. No one has ever fought like you." Dunn allowed herself a small smile. "We are humans," she said, "and we do not let bullies hurt innocent people. Now surrender or die. You have 10 seconds to decide." Crickstow looked at his ruined fleet. He looked at the human ships, still in perfect formation, their weapons still trained on his flagship. He looked at the planet below, where his prey was still alive, still protected by these strange, terrifying creatures, for the first time in his existence. Crickstow felt fear. "We surrender," he said. Admiral Dunn nodded. "Wise choice." The days following the battle were filled with hard work and healing. Human shuttles descended to the surface of Velner Prime carrying food, medicine, and equipment. Engineers in bright orange suits worked alongside Kethra workers to repair damaged infrastructure. Doctors set up field hospitals to treat the wounded. Soldiers helped clear rubble from destroyed buildings, sometimes pulling survivors from the ruins. The Kethra had never seen anything like it. Strangers from another world, working tirelessly to help people they had never met. Many of the humans did not even speak the local language. They communicated through gestures and smiles and shared effort. Commander Hayes spent most of his time on the surface, coordinating the relief efforts. He had not slept more than a few hours since the battle, but he could not bring himself to rest. There was too much work to do. Too many people still needed help. He was helping a team lift a collapsed beam from a residential building when a small Kethra child approached him. The child was young, probably the equivalent of 5 or 6 human years. Her blue skin was dirty and her clothes were torn, but her 4 eyes were wide with curiosity. "Are you a human?" she asked in halting. Commandant Hayes knelt down to her level. "Yes, I am. My name is Daniel." "What is your name?" "Nevela." The child studied his face with intense focus. "You do not look very scary." Hayes smiled. "I hope not. My mother said humans came from the sky to save us. She said you are like warriors from the old stories. Is that true?" Hayes thought about how to answer. He did not feel like a warrior from old stories. He felt like a tired man doing a hard job. "We came because you needed help," he said simply. "And we are staying until you do not need help anymore." The child considered this. "Will you always come? If we need help again?" "Yes," Hayes said. "Always." Nevela reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were longer than his, with an extra joint, but the gesture was unmistakably the same one human children made when they trusted someone. "Thank you," she said. Then she ran off to find her mother. Hayes watched her go, feeling something warm in his chest. This was why they did it. Not for glory or conquest. For children like Nevela. For people who deserved a chance to live in peace. Several days later, High Counselor Tevena traveled to the Galactic Council headquarters aboard a human transport. Admiral Dunn and Commander Hayes accompanied her as representatives of the Terran Federation. The Council headquarters was a massive space station at the center of the galaxy. Species from 100 different worlds had gathered there for thousands of years to discuss trade, resolve disputes, and supposedly maintain peace. Tevena had always hated the place. The council was good at talking. They were not so good at doing. The assembly chamber was a vast circular room with seats arranged in tiers. Representatives from dozens of species were present, all of them curious about the newcomers. Rumors about the Battle of Velmer Prime had already spread across the galaxy. The council chairman was an elderly member of the Vertan, a reptilian species known for their caution and bureaucratic nature. He called the assembly to order with 3 strikes of his ceremonial staff. This emergency session has been called to discuss the situation at Velner Prime and to hear testimony about the species known as humans. He looked at Tev, now with barely concealed disapproval. "High Counselor, you may speak." Tevena stood. She had prepared remarks, carefully written and diplomatically worded. She threw them away. "Council members," she began, 3 weeks ago, the Sketh Dominion attacked my world. They killed millions of my people. They destroyed our cities. They burned our forests. We sent emergency messages to this council begging for help." She paused, letting her words sink in. No help came. The council debated. The council discussed. The council followed procedures. And while you talked, my people died. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Such direct criticism was almost unheard of in this place. Then something happened, Tevena continued. A ship appeared. A single ship, crewed by a species we had never encountered. They had received our distress call. They did not debate. They did not discuss. They did not follow procedures. They attacked the Dominion fleet immediately. She gestured toward Admiral Dunn and Commander Hayes, who stood calmly in the visitor area. These are humans. Their federation has existed for only 60 years. They have fewer ships and fewer resources than most of the species in this room. But they did something none of you would do. They risked their lives to save strangers. The chairman cleared his throat. High Counselor, the council has protocols for dealing with aggressors like the Dominion. These protocols exist for good reasons. We cannot simply rush into conflicts without proper consideration. With respect, Chairman, your protocols protected no one. Tevena's voice was rising. While you considered, my daughter died on the 3rd moon. While you deliberated, children burned in their homes. Your protocols are worthless if they cannot save innocent lives. The chamber erupted in argument. Some representatives shouted in support of Tevena. Others defended the council's caution. The chairman struck his staff repeatedly, trying to restore order. Admiral Dunn stepped forward. The chamber gradually quieted. There was something about the human woman that commanded attention. "Council members," she said, her voice calm and clear. "I did not come here to criticize your procedures or demand changes to your politics. How you govern yourselves is your business." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative. "But I will tell you what humans believe. We believe that when someone is in danger and you can help, you have an obligation to try. We believe that the strong have a duty to protect the weak. We believe that no call for help should go unanswered." "These are nice words," the chairman said skeptically. "But words are easy. What do you want from the council?" "Nothing," Dunn replied. "We do not need your permission to help those who ask for it. We do not need your approval to fight against those who prey on the innocent. We came here as a courtesy to introduce ourselves and explain our presence in this region of space." She paused. "But I will make you one promise. From this day forward, any species that sends a distress call will have a chance of being heard by humans. And if we can help, we will come. That is not a threat. It is simply who we are." The vote to accept the Terran Federation into the Galactic Council was closer than Tevena had hoped, but it passed. Many species were afraid of these aggressive newcomers. Many others were intrigued by their philosophy. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. Human ships appeared in conflict zones across dozens of sectors. They protected refugee convoys. They defended colonies under attack. They stood between predators and prey without asking for payment or reward. Not everyone welcomed them. Some species saw humans as dangerous meddlers. The Sketh Dominion never forgave them for the defeat at Velner Prime. Old powers felt threatened by these newcomers who refused to play by the established rules. But for species like the Kethra, for the weak and the peaceful and the desperate, the humans were something new, something wonderful. They were hope. Commander Hayes eventually became Admiral Hayes. He commanded the 5th Fleet and spent his career answering distress calls across the galaxy. He never forgot the little girl named Nevela, who had touched his hand in the ruins of her city. High Counselor Tevena served her people for another 30 years. She rebuilt Velner Prime into something stronger than it had been before. And she always kept a human ship in orbit around her world, a symbol of the friendship between their species. When asked about the humans, she always said the same thing. We thought no help was coming. We were wrong. The humans taught us that kindness is not weakness. That courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision that something else is more important. That the universe is not as cold as we believed. She would smile then, her 4 eyes bright with memory. They erupted from the void when we had lost all hope. And everything changed forever. The Terran Federation never became the largest power in the galaxy. They never sought to conquer or dominate. They simply continued doing what they had always done. They answered calls for help. They protected the innocent. They showed the universe what humanity could be. And somewhere, in the vast darkness between stars, another species in trouble was sending a desperate message into the void, hoping against hope that someone would hear. The humans were already on their way.